The luxurious cabin of the private jet hummed softly with the quiet efficiency of modern aviation, its plush leather seats and polished wood accents a testament to opulence and precision. Sunlight filtered through the tinted windows, casting a warm glow over the interior where Jordan Carter sat serenely, her posture elegant and composed as she settled into the comfort of her seat. To anyone observing, she appeared to be a well-dressed passenger, a woman of poise and quiet confidence on a business trip. But Jordan was far more than just a traveler. Beneath the surface of her calm exterior lay a mind sharp with strategy and a heart tempered by years of relentless determination. She was the self-made tech billionaire who had not only built an empire through innovation and grit, but had also recently acquired the very company whose private jet she now occupied, a charter business renowned for its elite clientele and rigorous standards. Yet she chose to keep this truth concealed, cloaked beneath the anonymity of incognito travel, driven by a fierce desire to understand the realities of her company from the ground up, or in this case from the sky down. As the jet cruised steadily toward its destination, Jordan's thoughts swirled with the weight of responsibility and the subtle complexities of leadership. Knowing that success was not simply measured by profits, but by the integrity and morale of those whose lives intertwined with her vision. It was within this sanctuary of luxury, however, that the first ripples of tension began to surface. Sarah Jensen, the flight attendant assigned to this flight, moved with practiced grace among the aisles, her eyes sharp and ever observant. Sarah's demeanor was professional, but carried an undercurrent of guarded suspicion, a reflection of her own insecurities and prejudices shaped by years of service in an environment where appearance often dictated perception. When her gaze landed on Jordan, dressed simply yet impeccably in understated designer attire, a flicker of doubt crossed her mind. A quiet but insistent whisper that this passenger did not belong here. Sarah, without fully understanding why, found herself questioning Jordan's presence in this exclusive realm reserved for the privileged, the powerful, and the known. This unspoken judgment, a product of unconscious bias, cast a shadow over their interaction. With a polite but chilly tone, Sarah approached Jordan, offering assistance that seemed laced with an invisible barrier, as if Jordan's very presence was a challenge to the status quo. Jordan, sensing the subtle hostility beneath the surface, met Sarah's eyes with a calm yet unyielding gaze, aware that this encounter was more than a mere exchange of pleasantries. It was a microcosm of the prejudice and misunderstandings that often lurked unseen in places of power and privilege. Despite Sarah's initial coldness, Jordan chose kindness, responding with quiet grace and a measured warmth that subtly disarmed the flight attendant's suspicions, reminding her that true authority need not be loud or brash but could be conveyed through dignity and respect. Yet beneath this calm facade, Jordan's mind was working swiftly, observing not just Sarah's words and tone but the nuances of behavior throughout the cabin, the interactions between crew members, the attentiveness to passengers, and the unspoken hierarchies that influenced daily operations. Every detail mattered, for Jordan knew that the strength of her company depended not only on impeccable service, but on fostering an environment where every employee felt valued and empowered. The tension between Jordan and Sarah thus became emblematic of a larger, systemic challenge: how deep-seated biases could undermine unity and morale, threatening to erode the very foundations upon which great enterprises were built. As the flight progressed, Jordan's presence remained a quiet enigma to the crew. She navigated the cabin with a gentle authority, engaging subtly with the staff, her questions probing yet respectful, designed to elicit honest responses rather than defensiveness. Her ability to listen, truly listen, revealed stories of frustration and pride, of dreams deferred and ambitions kindled, painting a complex portrait of a workforce striving for excellence amid unseen obstacles. Meanwhile, Sarah found herself grappling with an unfamiliar mix of emotions. The initial certainty of judgment gave way to a reluctant curiosity, and then, unexpectedly, to a grudging respect. She began to recognize in Jordan a resilience and depth that defied her assumptions, challenging the narrow framework through which she had viewed the world. This internal shift was painful yet necessary, a confrontation with her own prejudices and the broader social dynamics at play. For Jordan, this encounter was a reminder of the silent battles waged daily in workplaces across the globe. Battles not always visible on balance sheets, but crucial to the health and humanity of any organization. The story unfolding in that private jet cabin was a microcosm of society's ongoing struggle with inequality, perception, and the quest for authentic leadership. As the jet touched down, signaling the end of the journey, Jordan's mission remained far from complete. The insights gained in these hours of incognito observation would inform her next steps, shaping policies and initiatives aimed at fostering inclusivity and respect within her company. More importantly, her experience underscored the profound truth that real power lies not merely in ownership or wealth, but in the ability to bridge divides, challenge prejudices, and uplift those around us. Jordan Carter's journey was a testament to the courage required to see beyond facades, to confront uncomfortable realities with empathy and strength, and to lead with a vision that embraces both excellence and equity. In this story of hidden identities and unspoken tensions, the luxurious cabin of a private jet became a crucible where prejudice met power, and where, through grace and resolve, a new narrative of understanding began to take flight. The crowded airplane cabin hummed with the low murmur of conversations and the occasional clink of beverage carts rolling down the aisle, a typical setting where strangers shared space for a limited time, each wrapped in their own worlds, their thoughts and unspoken stories. Amid the passengers seated in first class, where comfort and status mingled with subtle power dynamics, Jordan sat quietly, her posture composed but her heart tightly coiled, bracing for the inevitable confrontation that had already begun to cast a shadow over her journey. She was no stranger to the looks, the sidelong glances, the barely concealed judgments that followed her quietly like a storm cloud waiting to burst, but she had never let those looks define her. Today, however, those judgments took form in the person of Sarah, a fellow passenger whose condescension quickly morphed into something far more malicious. Sarah, embodying an air of entitlement bred from privilege and ignorance, stood over Jordan, her presence a looming threat in the confined space of the airplane's narrow aisle. Her eyes, sharp with disdain, locked onto Jordan with an intensity that bordered on hostility. Without any preamble, Sarah pointed her finger accusingly at Jordan, her voice rising just enough to slice through the ambient noise like a jagged blade. The words that came next were brutal, raw, and soaked in hate. "You don't belong here. You're nothing but an ape. Get out." The room seemed to freeze in the immediate aftermath, the cruel insult echoing against the walls of the cabin like a thunderclap in the stillness of a storm. Passengers nearby turned their heads, their expressions a complex blend of shock, discomfort, and a silent acknowledgement of the ugliness that had just been unleashed. Yet despite the gravity of the moment, no one stepped forward to challenge Sarah's words. The oppressive weight of bystander silence filled the air, an invisible barrier that seemed to protect the abuser and isolate the victim. Jordan felt the sting of the slur not just in the insult itself, but in the collective inaction that allowed it to persist. The humiliation was raw, a visceral blow that threatened to unravel her carefully maintained composure. But Jordan was no stranger to pain or prejudice. Her life had been a series of battles fought in quiet corners and public arenas alike, each encounter a test of resilience and self-worth. As Sarah's finger jabbed at her as if to physically push her away, Jordan's gaze remained steady, unwavering in the face of blatant hostility. There was no retaliation, no fiery outburst, only a profound, silent strength that radiated from within her. Her eyes, dark and steady, held a complexity of emotions, a simmering anger, a deep sorrow, but above all an unbreakable resolve. This silence was not submission. It was a powerful refusal to let Sarah's words define her, a quiet declaration that dignity need not be loud to be real. The emotional tension in that cramped space grew heavier with every second. Jordan's internal world became a tempest, swirling with the pain of discrimination and the fierce determination to endure. She thought of all the times she had been seen but not heard, judged but not understood. She felt the weight of history on her shoulders, the legacy of those who had been marginalized, humiliated, and silenced. And yet within that heavy burden was a spark of defiance. Jordan's silence was a shield forged from years of experience, a way to maintain control over a situation where every instinct might scream to lash out. It was also a testament to the dignity she had cultivated in the face of relentless adversity. Meanwhile, Sarah's behavior grew louder, her voice harsher, her insults more pointed as if fueled by Jordan's quiet resistance. Yet the crowd remained rooted in uncomfortable silence. Over cruelty, wisdom over arrogance, and identity over prejudice, The confrontation had become a microcosm of larger societal battles, reflecting the ongoing struggles for recognition, equality, and respect faced by many. The scene closed with an unspoken promise that such moments of revelation and reversal, when the marginalized rise to claim their rightful place, carry the potential to reshape perceptions and rewrite the rules of engagement in any sphere of life. The story left every person present changed, their understanding of power and dignity expanded by the unforgettable moment when a simple slap echoed far beyond the walls of the plane, reverberating into the hearts and minds of all who witnessed the stunning revelation of who truly held the reins. The atmosphere inside the sleek, luxurious cabin of the private jet shifted palpably as Jordan, poised and unshaken, stepped forward, her presence commanding an immediate hush among the passengers who moments ago had been whispering, some with curiosity, others with barely concealed judgment. The air, once thick with tension and simmering conflict, now crackled with a different energy, one of undeniable authority and unassailable truth. Jordan's voice, calm yet resolute, cut through the murmurs like a blade. Carrying the weight of a power no one on board had anticipated, she revealed with an almost understated gravity that she was not merely a passenger, but the owner of the private jet charter company itself, the very entity responsible for their flight. The revelation landed like a thunderclap in the enclosed space, silencing Sarah's earlier bravado and leaving her visibly shaken. Jordan's declaration was more than a statement of identity. It was a seismic shift in the dynamics of control and accountability that had governed the cabin's atmosphere up until that moment. No longer could Sarah wield her arrogance as a shield. No longer could she dismiss the discomfort and humiliation she had inflicted on others as inconsequential. Jordan, now fully in command, directed the pilot with a steady, unwavering voice to proceed with an immediate landing at the nearest airport, a command underscored by a chilling clarity that brooked no argument. She then instructed that Sarah be removed from the aircraft upon arrival and handed over to the authorities for assault and discrimination, charges that crystallized the severity of Sarah's conduct. The gravity of the situation settled over the cabin like a thick fog, as passengers exchanged glances laden with a mixture of shock, relief, and growing respect. This was no longer a petty dispute or a fleeting drama. It was a reckoning, a moment where justice was being served with unflinching resolve. Jordan's swift, decisive action reverberated far beyond the immediate circle of those present, echoing a broader message about accountability and the imperative of standing against injustice, no matter how intimidating the perpetrator may seem. Sarah, who had so recently exuded confidence and disdain, found herself stripped bare of pretense, her earlier arrogance utterly dismantled by the stark reality of her impending consequences. Her silence was deafening, a stark contrast to her prior outbursts, and in that silence lay the unspoken admission of defeat. Meanwhile, the passengers, once silent witnesses or perhaps even silent sufferers of the incident, began to recognize the profound courage and integrity Jordan displayed. Their eyes, which had flicked nervously or judgmentally before, now held a quiet admiration. They saw not just a woman reclaiming her dignity, but a leader embodying the principles of justice and respect that transcended social hierarchy and power plays. Jordan's poised demeanor in the face of adversity, her refusal to be cowed or marginalized, inspired an emotional response that was both validating and uplifting for those who had been caught in the uncomfortable crossfire of discrimination and abuse. The narrative that unfolded in that moment became a powerful testament to the strength found in self-respect and moral clarity, illustrating that true authority is derived not from position alone, but from the courage to wield it with fairness and conviction. The story of Jordan's intervention was one that resonated deeply with every person on that flight, serving as a reminder that standing up against injustice requires not only bravery, but also a steadfast commitment to truth. Her actions exposed the cracks in a system that too often allows discrimination to fester unchecked and sent a resounding message that such behavior would no longer be tolerated under her watch. As the plane descended, the humbling of Sarah was complete. Her fate now firmly in the hands of justice. She was a stark example of what happens when arrogance meets accountability. The emotional justice of the moment was profoundly satisfying, not just for Jordan but for everyone who recognized the significance of what had transpired. In that cabin, surrounded by strangers who had witnessed a remarkable display of power and principle, Jordan stood tall, a beacon of integrity who had reclaimed not only her own dignity, but had also held a mirror to the corporate and personal failings that allowed discrimination to persist. This moment of reckoning was a turning point, a vivid illustration of how authority, when exercised with compassion and strength, can right wrongs and restore faith in the fundamental ideals of respect and equality. The passengers, some still grappling with the shock, understood they had witnessed something rare and consequential, the dismantling of an unjust hierarchy and the restoration of dignity to those who deserved it most. Jordan's story in that instant transcended the confines of the flight, becoming a symbol of hope and resilience, reminding all who heard it that no form of discrimination or abuse could withstand the steady, unwavering power of justice wielded by someone who refuses to back down. And as the jet touched down, carrying with it the promise of accountability and change, the legacy of that confrontation would linger long after the engines fell silent, a testament to the fact that true strength lies not in domination, but in the courage to stand up, speak out, and ensure that no one, regardless of their position or power, is above the law or common decency. Jordan stepped through the sleek glass doors of her corporate office with a quiet determination that seemed to ripple through the very air around her. The incident that had shaken her company to its core was still fresh in her mind, the moment when the facade of professionalism and exclusivity had cracked, revealing the ugly underbelly of entitlement and disrespect that no longer had a place in her vision for the business. For years, the private jet company had been a symbol of luxury and power, synonymous with wealth and exclusivity. But Jordan saw it as something far more important, a platform to redefine what true service meant, a chance to build a legacy rooted not just in financial success, but in dignity and integrity. That moment of reckoning had come when a high-profile client had acted with blatant arrogance and disdain toward one of her employees, an incident Jordan had witnessed firsthand. The employee, a dedicated woman who had always gone above and beyond, was dismissed and insulted simply because she was not born into privilege. A stark reminder of the systemic problems Jordan was determined to eradicate within her company's culture. Instead of turning away or suppressing the event, Jordan confronted it head-on, knowing this was not just about a single act of rudeness, but a broader failure of values that needed correction. She returned to her office where the polished walls and gleaming surfaces reflected the weight of responsibility she carried. There, amidst stacks of reports and the hum of busy staff, she drafted sweeping new policies designed to ensure that no employee or customer would ever face such disrespect again. These policies emphasized kindness, accountability, and mutual respect, transforming what had once been a sterile corporate code into a living, breathing manifesto of the company's core principles. She called meetings with every department, from the pilots to the ground crew, from customer service to maintenance, laying out her vision clearly and passionately. Jordan didn't just want compliance, she wanted a culture shift, a rebirth of values that would permeate every interaction, every flight, every moment the company touched a life. The changes were not easy. There were murmurs of resistance, whispered doubts about how enforcing respect could impact profits or complicate dealings with demanding clients. But Jordan's resolve was unshakable. She knew that true leadership meant more than appeasing those with power and money. It meant protecting those who worked tirelessly behind the scenes, ensuring fairness and dignity for all, and standing firm against injustice no matter the cost. Slowly, the company began to transform. Training programs were introduced, focusing on empathy and communication. Incentives rewarded acts of kindness and professionalism, encouraging employees to embody the values Jordan held dear. Client contracts began to include clear behavioral expectations, signaling that entitlement and abuse would no longer be tolerated, regardless of a client's status. Word spread within the industry that this private jet company was different, that it operated with heart and conscience as well as efficiency and luxury. Jordan's leadership became a beacon, attracting a new generation of employees who shared her vision and customers, who appreciated not just the service, but the respect with which they were treated. Throughout this journey, Jordan often found herself reflecting on how far she had come. From her early days as an ambitious but overlooked executive, fighting against bias and underestimation, their faces betraying a mix of embarrassment, fear, and helplessness, some clutched their belongings tighter, unwilling to confront the ugliness before them, while others cast furtive glances, perhaps grappling with their own moral compasses but too uncertain or afraid to intervene. The social dynamics at play were complex and fraught. Fear of confrontation, ingrained prejudices, and the bystander effect all conspired to keep the status quo intact. Jordan, however, felt an increasing fire building inside her, a growing awareness that silence, while powerful, was also a burden to carry alone. Her thoughts flickered to the world beyond the airplane's walls, the communities she was part of, the fight for equality and justice that shaped her daily existence. This moment, painful as it was, became a crucible for her spirit, intensifying her commitment to rise above the petty cruelty of ignorance. She reflected on the strength it took to remain composed in the face of such dehumanization, the immense courage needed to resist responding with hatred when hatred was thrown at her like a weapon. Jordan's gaze shifted briefly, scanning the faces of the other passengers, some sympathetic, some indifferent, and some visibly uncomfortable. Her eyes searched for a flicker of solidarity, a sign that she was not truly alone. The absence of support was a bitter pill, yet it also steeled her resolve. In that instant, she became a silent beacon for all who had been made to feel invisible, a living testament to the power of endurance and grace under fire. As Sarah's insults escalated, the narrative tension reached its peak. Jordan's mind raced with memories of past injustices and the countless times she had been forced to swallow her pride to survive. Yet beneath the surface of pain was a deep reservoir of strength. She understood that this confrontation was more than a personal attack. It was a microcosm of a larger societal struggle against prejudice and inequality. Jordan's silence was a language of resistance, speaking volumes without uttering a word. Her posture remained poised, her breathing steady, as if drawing from a well of inner peace that no external insult could penetrate. The contrast between Sarah's loud, abrasive hostility and Jordan's calm, dignified endurance painted a vivid picture of the human capacity to face cruelty with quiet courage. The emotional complexity of the moment was palpable, Jordan's heart heavy but unyielding, Sarah's aggression a mask for deeper insecurities and biases, and the passengers caught in the uncomfortable middle ground of witnessing injustice without intervention. Time seemed to slow as Jordan held Sarah's gaze, refusing to look away, a silent challenge that radiated strength and defied humiliation. This was no ordinary encounter. It was a profound moment of personal and collective reckoning. The passengers' silence, once a source of Jordan's isolation, began to feel like a shared burden, an unspoken call for empathy and courage that had yet to be answered. In that charged atmosphere, Jordan's quiet dignity became a powerful force, transforming her from victim to victor in the eyes of those who truly saw her. The narrative of this confrontation extended beyond the narrow aisle of the airplane, resonating with anyone who had ever faced discrimination, injustice, or marginalization. It illuminated the painful reality of being judged by surface appearances and the profound strength required to maintain one's humanity in the face of dehumanizing treatment. Jordan's silent struggle and growing anger inside were not signs of weakness but of a fierce, unyielding spirit. Her ability to maintain composure amidst such venomous insults highlighted the complex interplay of vulnerability and resilience that defines the human experience. This story, while rooted in a single moment of cruelty, became a testament to the enduring power of grace, dignity, and silent resistance. It reminded onlookers, whether present in that airplane cabin or reading these words, that the fight against prejudice often takes place in quiet, unseen moments where courage is measured not by loud defiance but by the strength to endure and the refusal to be diminished. As the flight continued and the passengers gradually returned to their own thoughts, the memory of Sarah's insult lingered, a stark reminder of the ongoing challenges faced by those who dare to occupy spaces from which they are often excluded. Yet alongside the pain, there remained the lasting image of Jordan, steadfast, composed, and unbowed, a symbol of quiet heroism and the unbreakable will to claim dignity against the harshest odds. In the silence that followed, Jordan's story became an unspoken call to action, urging witnesses everywhere to move beyond fear and complicity, to speak out against injustice, and to stand in solidarity with those who face discrimination. For in the quiet strength of one woman, the potential for profound change was born, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, dignity can shine brightest. The atmosphere inside the airplane cabin was electric with tension, charged by the bitter and escalating confrontation between Sarah and Jordan, a clash that had begun as a subtle undercurrent of social friction, but now roared openly in the close quarters of the aircraft. Passengers shifted uncomfortably in their seats, some turning sharply to catch every word, while others tried to shrink into themselves, unwilling participants in the brewing storm. Sarah, her voice rising with the arrogance of entitlement, unleashed a tirade fueled by prejudice and a desperate need to assert dominance. Her words, sharp and biting, echoed off the walls with an unforgiving edge, each sentence a blow aimed at Jordan's dignity. Jordan, who had been patient and composed, bore the verbal abuse with quiet strength, her face carefully composed to mask the simmering fury inside. Beneath her calm exterior lay a reservoir of pain and resilience, a testament to years of enduring marginalization, dismissiveness, and invisible battles fought daily. Sarah's insults were more than just personal attacks. They were symbolic strikes against a woman whose presence challenged the social norms Sarah clung to so desperately. The cabin's murmurs grew louder, passengers exchanging glances that mixed sympathy, discomfort, and the realization that the situation was spiraling beyond mere words. Jordan's heart pounded, but her mind was clear, laser-focused on the moment that would shift the entire dynamic. As Sarah's tirade reached its peak, her voice now a harsh crescendo, Jordan rose with a sudden, measured decisiveness that stunned everyone. Her movement was fluid and purposeful, a stark contrast to Sarah's frantic bluster, and in one swift motion, Jordan's hand connected with Sarah's cheek in a sharp, resonant slap that shattered the charged silence with a startling crack. The sound echoed through the cabin like a gunshot, freezing time as every head turned towards them, eyes wide with shock and disbelief. Sarah's face, flushed with rage moments before, drained of color as the sting of the slap registered, leaving her momentarily dumbstruck and vulnerable. The tables turned irrevocably in a single gesture. The pilot, alerted by the commotion, hurried from the cockpit, his authoritative presence cutting through the tension as he stepped into the confined space between rows of seats. His calm professionalism was tested by the unfolding scene. He was a man trained to manage crises, yet even he was taken aback by the unexpected drama playing out in his aircraft. Jordan's gaze met his with unwavering certainty, her voice steady and clear as she declared, "You can't do that. I own this plane." The words hung heavy in the air, a revelation that rippled through the cabin and altered the atmosphere instantaneously. Whispers rose among the passengers, curious, incredulous, and charged with the shock of witnessing a profound reversal of fortune. The notion that the woman who had just delivered a stunning rebuke was not merely a passenger but the rightful owner of the plane was almost too much to absorb in that moment. Jordan's declaration was more than a statement of fact. It was a powerful assertion of identity and authority that shattered the illusion of social hierarchy Sarah had tried to impose. The pilot's face, a picture of composed control just seconds before, now betrayed a flicker of disbelief and reluctant acknowledgement of the truth. For the first time, Sarah was the one who seemed small, vulnerable, and exposed. Her smug grin vanished, replaced by a pale, frightened expression, as she realized the magnitude of her miscalculation. She had challenged someone whose power far exceeded her own, someone who could command the entire aircraft with a single word. The emotional impact of the moment was profound, a seismic shift in power that resonated far beyond the cabin's walls. Jordan's quiet dignity and commanding presence became a beacon of justice, exposing the cruelty of prejudice and the fragile facades of social dominance. Passengers who moments earlier had been mere onlookers now found themselves witnesses to a transformative moment of truth, where respect was demanded not through fear or bluster, but through the undeniable authority of rightful ownership and self-respect. The incident underscored the complexities of power dynamics, revealing how easily perceived hierarchies could be dismantled by courage and clarity. Sarah's earlier behavior, rooted in ignorance and bias, was now laid bare as foolish and reckless, while Jordan's poised response illuminated a deeper truth. True power is often quiet, unyielding, and grounded in self-worth. As the cabin gradually settled from the shock, an almost reverent silence took hold, a collective recognition that something extraordinary had just unfolded. Jordan, standing tall amidst the shifting energy, embodied the triumph of resilience. To now standing at the helm of a company reshaped by her values, her story was one of perseverance, courage, and profound belief in the power of dignity. She had learned that real strength did not come from wealth, titles, or social standing, but from integrity and the willingness to stand up for what was right, especially when it was hard. The personal sacrifices she had made, the late nights, the difficult conversations, the moments of doubt, had all been steps toward a legacy far greater than profits, a legacy of respect and kindness. The private jet company, once just a symbol of luxury for the elite, had become a symbol of transformation and hope. It was now known not just for its impeccable service and cutting-edge technology, but for its commitment to treating every individual with fairness and compassion. Jordan watched as employees flourished in this new environment, their smiles genuine, their pride evident. Clients, too, responded positively, appreciating a culture where kindness was not a marketing slogan but a lived reality. One day, standing in the main office overlooking the hangar where sleek jets awaited their next journey, Jordan felt a quiet satisfaction wash over her. This was more than a business. It was a testament to what could be achieved when courage met compassion, when leadership was grounded in humanity. She thought of the employee whose dignity had sparked this revolution, of the countless people who had been uplifted by the change, and of the future still to come. Jordan knew this was only the beginning. True power, she realized, was not measured by the size of one's bank account or the opulence of the surroundings, but by the courage to stand up for oneself and others, to uphold values in the face of adversity, and to lead with both heart and mind. As she prepared for the next chapter, whether it be expansion, innovation, or new challenges, Jordan carried with her the unshakable conviction that kindness and respect were the company's most valuable assets, the true currency of success that would endure long after any flight landed. In the soaring heights of the private jets that now bore her company's name, Jordan's legacy flew not just as a symbol of luxury, but as a beacon of dignity, inspiring all who looked up to reach higher, be better, and never forget the power of humanity at the core of every endeavor. In the months and years that followed, Jordan's vision continued to ripple through every corner of the company and beyond. The policies she had implemented became more than rules. They grew into a culture that redefined the very essence of luxury aviation. Stories began to emerge from employees and clients alike, tales of small acts of kindness, unexpected moments of genuine connection, and a workplace where everyone, from the CEO to the ground crew, felt valued and heard. Jordan often received letters and messages from those who had once felt invisible or undervalued, thanking her for creating a space where they could bring their whole selves to work without fear or hesitation. But perhaps the most profound change was the transformation in the company's clientele. The new generation of customers was drawn not just to the exquisite jets or the seamless logistics, but to a company that embodied the respect and dignity they craved in a world too often defined by superficiality and entitlement. Jordan's leadership had attracted not just business but belief, a shared conviction that success should never come at the cost of humanity. This shift wasn't without challenges. There were times when long-standing clients balked at the stricter codes of conduct, or when economic downturns threatened to pull focus back toward profits over principles. Yet Jordan faced each obstacle with the same resolve that had carried her from her earliest struggles, a steadfast commitment to the values that had become her company's heartbeat. She often reflected on the delicate balance between maintaining business growth and preserving the soul of her organization. It was a balance she guarded fiercely, knowing that every decision would either strengthen or erode the legacy she was building. Outside the office, Jordan's influence began to touch the wider community. She partnered with organizations dedicated to social justice and education, using her company's platform to advocate for equity and opportunity. She launched initiatives that provided scholarships and mentorship to young people from marginalized backgrounds, determined to open doors that had once been firmly closed to her. Her story became a beacon of hope, a narrative not just of personal triumph but of transformative leadership grounded in empathy and courage. Through public speaking engagements and media appearances, Jordan shared the lessons she had learned, that leadership is not about wielding power but about lifting others, that true wealth lies in human dignity, and that change, though difficult, is always possible when one refuses to settle for injustice. Despite the growing demands on her time and energy, Jordan remained deeply connected to her employees. She made it a point to walk through the hangars and offices regularly, engaging with staff at every level. She listened, learned, and adapted, understanding that a legacy was not a static monument but a living, breathing entity that needed nurturing and care. On one particular day, standing in the sunlight filtering through the glass walls, Jordan watched as a young flight attendant helped an elderly passenger with gentle patience and warmth. The scene filled her with quiet pride, a reminder of how far the company had come and how many lives had been touched by this transformation. It was in these everyday moments that Jordan saw the true measure of her success. The private jet company had become a family, bound not by titles or transactions but by mutual respect and shared purpose. And as the world around them continued to shift and evolve, Jordan remained a steadfast guardian of these values, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with unwavering integrity. Her journey was far from over, but she no longer walked it alone. The team she had built, the culture she had fostered, and the legacy she had begun were all testament to the power of standing firm in one's principles. And in the quiet moments when the hum of the jets was just a whisper in the background, Jordan would reflect on the truth she had discovered, that real power is not about domination or display, but about the courage to lead with kindness and the vision to create a better world for those who come after. This was her legacy, the lasting imprint of dignity, respect, and hope, soaring far beyond the runways and into the hearts of all who believed in a different way of doing business and living life.